Hello and welcome to Surprise Radio. I'm your host, Surprise, and today I'm joined by Daniel of Promethium. Thank you so much.
How you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm doing great. How are you?
All good today, man. All good. Living the dream at a weekend.
Now, doing my research on Promethium, saw that you've been around since 2007. Um, is
Yeah,
have you been in the band since the beginning?
I have. Yeah. It was me. I started it originally. So yeah, back in the day, like Jesus Christ, man. It makes me feel old now when you say 2007. It's like coming up to 20 years now, man. I
It's getting
wasn't great
close.
then. I was like, it was great. It was good times. But yeah, started it 2007 like as a bit of a studio project, and it's gone on from there, and like five albums down the line sort of thing, and a six just being worked on. So it's like, yeah, it's like God, time's gone quick, to be honest.
And Promethium is based out of Lancaster, UK, right?
That is correct. Yeah, Lancaster, UK in the northwest. So like right in the sort of like middle, sort of like where you're up to Scotland or you're down to London sort of thing. So we're right in the middle there, to be honest, where we are.
And so, like I said, you started in 2007. Your first album was 2010. Tell me about some of the changes in the music industry you've seen and that you would like to see.
Are we just going to do a toll on a slate now, the music industry then?
That's what it's
It's
all about, though.
it's weird. We've seen so 2010 as like the first album came out, it was weird because you were starting to see the dawn of like the internet radio station sort of side. You were seeing like obviously, there was a lot. Social media was very positive then, very positive, and good. And you started to see things grow, and then stuff grew overnight within, especially in the social media side. And then you started to see more and more of the age of the downloads, and that was coming earlier on. You saw that after 2000 when you could suddenly get an album online just like that
Yeah,
quick. You
yeah.
started to see that, and then it started to come more and more and more now. And then all of a sudden you have like this little rotating thing where it's going back to hard copy, but it's weird, it's strange. You've seen the vinyl resurgence and the tape side and everything, and it's strange. It's weird. There's some positives, and there's a lot of positives, and there's a lot of negatives. And the thing that I found recently that's weird is that we did this new album, and we did well. I mean, it's done fantastic. It's done the best we've ever done with an album. It broke even 24 hours, day two. And the thing that I noticed that was weird, and talking to people, we do it different. So we have our own label now. So we've done the last four releases, because one was a re-release on our own label. So what we do is we have distribution, and we release the album, and then we put it on digital a bit of time later, give it a couple of months, something like that. And the one thing that I noticed this time is that we had pre-orders were fantastic, and we got a small amount of people that contacted us, and it was mainly, I'd say, the bulk of people that I knew anyway. And there's a few of us that were like, "When's the digital coming out?" I was like, "Hey, it's not going to be for a bit. I'll get a CD anyway." He's like, "Okay, cool. So you have still got a CD?" Yes. Right, cool. And then there were some people who were like, "You trusted, so you're like, you know what? I will sell you a Dropbox, but I trust you, so don't share it or anything like, which was fine because it was sort of people we knew. But the one thing that I found is that talking to people, a lot of it's not about the fact that they've got rid of CD players, things like that. It's the fact that they don't want clutter. They don't want that massive collection there. And so a lot of people, they get it and they just bin the box, that's it, and it gets filed into a nice compact thing. And I get it. I totally get that. But that's one of the things that's weird. You're sort of like, right, okay, so you'd rather have digital than that because of space. And you sort of, okay, I sort of get it. And then, but the thing that I don't get is I don't get comparing digital to physical copy. I still find there's a difference. I've heard our album, I've heard older versions of our albums on digital, and you listen to it and you go, that sounds crap. That sounds nothing like the album sounds.
I
Yeah,
too enjoy having CDs around. This is just the ones that I've added to my computer in the last little bit. So I
yeah,
love
well,
having
that's the thing.
CDs.
I totally get it. I totally get it, and I get people who rip it and put it. Totally get that. But I'm like, I want a physical product. I want to sit down. I want to listen to it. I want to read the booklet. I want to find out how it was recorded, who's on it, the stories, read the lyrics, get into it.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the thing about the vinyl. The thing about vinyl is people, with that, it's not like CDs. With CDs, you can pick I want tracks 4, 5, 6, and 7. With the vinyl, you've got to sit down and enjoy it, and you've got to have the room and the space. And the thing that I find weird is all these people that are buying vinyl at the moment. There's a lot that don't have an amazing system to play it on.
Hmm.
The thing about vinyl is you get it, you want the clarity, you want the big speakers, and you see what you're playing it on. You're like, all right, that's cool, but you're not getting that full
Yeah.
aspect out of it. If
I
anything,
grew up in the 80s and 90s, and my dad had just the most ridiculous, record player system that you've ever seen,
yeah.
and it sounded so good. And all my life, I wanted to have something that sounded that good. So I know exactly what you mean. You have to have the right speakers, and does have
Oh
to
yeah,
be an
definitely.
experience.
Definitely. I mean, I'm still like that. I've still got, there's a couple of mini CD players in the kitchen and stuff.
Hmm.
But my main player is it's big, it's massive speakers, it's good, and the quality out of it is stunning. You hear it. The amp that I've got, it just it's an archive. It sounds fantastic. It pulls out all this quality that you hear. You hear the bass, you hear the rhythm, you hear the little intricacies, and it's like it's what brings an album to life rather than this compressed thing listening to it on these small headphones. And you're like, you're missing the full picture. Do you know what I mean? That's the thing.
Yeah. And another thing that you miss when you have CDs, and this may or may not be a good thing, but it kind of made me chuckle when I realized it, is when you have a skip in a CD, and you've listened to that CD for years, and that skip is always in the same place, and then you
Yeah,
hear it
yeah,
without it, and you're like, oh, that's what it's supposed to sound like.
yeah, yeah. No, that's the thing in it. You always get those little ones. The amount of albums that I've like bought 2 or 3 times because you've
Yeah.
overdone those certain things. Do you know what I mean? You're like, Jesus Christ, I can't believe that I've worn a CD out, not from like damaging it, but just actually from
Wearing it
wearing.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like God. Yeah, that's
But
unbelievable.
sometimes those can trigger a cool memory, like, oh, I was sitting in my flat in 99 listening to the CD with my buddy that's not with me anymore, or something like that.
Oh
And
yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember I was talking the other day and we were going through what's the album that not that you bought the amount of copies of because there's been a re-release or a remix or a rematch, but that you've actually bought out because you've worn it out. And I worked out the one, and I don't listen to it anymore, but the album that I bought the most that I wore out was Appetite for Destruction.
yeah.
I wore 2 tapes out. I had 3 CDs, and the CD always skipped from my 2 favorite tracks from listening to Think About what is it, Think About You or whatever, and then Sweet Child of Mine, because I
Hmm.
always used to play those two. And then it always skipped on Night Train as well, because I'd programmed the CD to literally have, right, I want tracks 4, 4, 7, and 8. Do you know what I mean? And
Hmm.
and that was it. And I just wore them out that much. It was like, Jesus Christ, that was it. So I've contributed to that, keeping that album definitely in the charts.
Well, I do wonder, I guess that does kind of bring me to my next question, which is, tell me about some of your influences and heroes, because you can definitely hear a lot of metal influences, but at the same time, you can't really pinpoint any one. So I'd like to
Yeah,
hear some of
everyone
yours.
always says that, and I think especially with the new album, it's like there's a lot of influences, but it doesn't ever just sound like one thing. So
Hmm.
we, as a band, we all listen to. I mean, it varies. Andy, our guitar player, he's not got anything past like 1990 in his collection. He's like, he's recently started to, but other than that, I think the last album he bought was probably the third Skid Row album. Do you know what I mean? That's it. He didn't, and now he's getting educated and listening to some more modern stuff. Our bass player Ben, he's really into, um, he's more heavier, he's trivium sort of kill switch sort of things. Aiden's the metalcore guy, and James, our singer, he's a lot more indie sort of thing. It's really weird. Whereas I have like a full spectrum where I'm a classic thrash 80s and Annihilator and Testament, and then I'm a massive Winger fan. I'm like love Winger, and I love Five Finger Death Punch. I'll fully admit I don't care. But so I've got like a lot there, and also like your classic, like your Sabotage and things like that. So I'm really into like a full spectrum of like that. So it's not just one genre. I'll fully admit I've got all the Dokken albums. I'm not going to deny that. And that comes together, and I think that's the thing. I think it's important to have like a wide plethora of sort of like music that you listen to be able to influence you, and enjoy rather than just be specific. I'm just a metalcore guy or I'm just a thrash guy or something like that. You want
I
that full
agree.
spectrum for being able to write and do it. And I think that sort of works with us quite nicely, really, to be honest.
I agree. It's okay to have a favorite, but it's nice to be able to dip into a little bit of everything because you
Oh,
never know who you're going to learn from.
Oh no, definitely 110%. And I find that's the thing. That's the thing. I get a lot of like I said slating from our drummer for listening to Winger. I love Winger because Kip's just a phenomenal musician and he's a stunning songwriter and he's a brilliant arranger. And the amount of times his influence has come on to sort of looking at me at a track and sort of going, you know what, actually, we need to widen the berth on this and think about that, and add this and go there and not be afraid to sort of experiment something new, as opposed to just going verse, chorus, pre-chorus. That like let's go down this rabbit hole that could be quite different here, really, to be honest. So that's how I look at it, anyway, to be honest.
And I know that you also do most of, if not all of the production for your albums as well. So tell me about some of the influence on that. Do you have outside people come in and kind of help you see something you don't see, or do you pretty much know
Yeah,
what you're looking at?
it's weird because the first I think the thing is you definitely listen every time you do an album. The thing that I like is you do an album, you realize where you fucked up, and and you learn from that.
Mhm.
And we did the first album. We did the first album. All I knew was I had a bunch of songs. I didn't know what I needed to do. I've been in the studio loads of times, but I didn't know exactly not how to lay it down, but what I needed to what focus and what order. And when we came to remixing, because we re-released our first album about 3 years ago, like 10th anniversary with bonus tracks remixed, remastered. And the first thing we realized was in 10 years how much technology had improved. We started it during COVID because we had downtime. And it was amazing how much, plugins, different facilities you could do. And it was great. But you suddenly realized, oh shit, I didn't use a click track, or I didn't use that, or didn't use that, or those overheads weren't strong enough, or something like that. And you go, right, okay. So, and then you learn for your next one and everything like that. And on the third album, I didn't mix and master that. We did that with a friend of mine, a guy called Curran Murphy. He was in Annihilator and Nevermore and everything like that. And he's a good mate of mine. And he was just like, I want to do it. And I was like, yeah, I'm happy. And that to me was a break, but it was like weird that you're not in the room now, and instead you're getting these mixes going, can we have this? Can we have that? But it worked. And I needed a break, if anything. And then I was like hungry again to be able to do it. And this last one was really good because, to be honest, we've all got good ears and we've all got like a good sense of direction and melody. And it was just, I'll do something and then there'll be a little thing going, you know what, we could have that a touch louder, or we could bring this up as a harmony or do that. And it's quite a varied sort of thing where you do it, because it does get to that point. There was at one point, and I think it was we released the album officially in November last year. And I think when we finished mixing it in probably like April or something like that, it was to the point of like, I don't even know what I'm listening to at the moment. I'm like, you're going, I was getting so paranoid about a noise, or, a little, there was a couple of times you'd actually go in and go, what is that little buzz? What is that hum? What?
Mhm.
And you'd focus in. And then it'd turn out, and one of the things once we realized we record it, we use a studio that's, it's like an old church that's in the middle of nowhere. It's fantastic. Graveyard and everything that's been converted into studio. And it's brilliant. It's really cool. And we'd realized that this noise that we were hearing that was off one of the powerful mics was actually bats outside. And
Oh
it was
wow.
like, wow, that's unbelievable. Do you know what I
And
mean?
that's
And it
really metal too.
yeah, and it is. It's like really cool, but it's like all the littlest things as well, because you've got to remember that, as soon as you've finished, you need to make sure that there's that pause where the drummer doesn't straight away, as soon as you finish, go, oh, that was shit. That was that, because the amount of times that's happened on a recording, you're like, no, you've just done a great recording and you've just talked, you bellend.
Yeah.
And so it's like little things like that. But this one, which I'm the last album, Bleeding the Ghost, which like I said, I'm so proud of, that was to a point where it was like I'm going mental here, hearing these little things and these little bits of just like, no, that frequency's not quite right, or no, that and you just get to the point where I don't even know what I'm listening to now. And so I did take a break. I took a couple of
Hmm.
weeks. I just don't want it. I need to just get away from this. and then you go back to it, and this little thing isn't an issue that you thought it was. But it is hard. It is definitely, and I understand why people don't want to do it, but I want to do it because I know that I want to improve every time I go in and do something, and I want to learn. Do you know what I mean? So it is stressful though because you like I said, I'm there constantly, and you're like, going, if I hear this song again, I'm just gonna punch someone in the throat.
Yeah. Does that ever make you tired of certain songs? Like, is there one song that you just kept on listening to in the studio to get right, and then you just can't stand playing it live? Did that ever happen?
No, do you know what? On this album, no. There was little bits where I had it was really weird. I'd gone in and during COVID, I'd spent a fortune. I mean, I'm a gear and guitar like alcoholic. Totally. I just spent my guitar collection is just ridiculous. And I was like during COVID, I was like, I'm gonna buy all this shit because I had all these ideas. And I took all this stuff down to the thousands of pounds worth of new equipment down to studio. And you're plugging all in. I'm gonna use this. And I didn't use any of it. It was like literally. I ended up using, and it was the weirdest thing. I ended up using the cheapest guitar I own, which is a great guitar, and ended up using my normal live amplifier as the main amplifier because it just worked. And it was like, this is weird. And I'd recorded the whole album like guitar wise before, the drums were down. We tied it, we'd done the alterations we needed to put all the guitars down, and then sitting with it for 2 days, like using £10,000 worth of guitar equipment. I was like, this sounds shit. This sounds crap. And then I was like, the engineer was like, sounds great. And I was like, no, it sounds shit. It's not what I want. And we went back and he was quite disheartened because he was like, I think it's right. And I was like, no, it's just not right. And then we looked and we tried it and he was like, we're now using the cheapest lot of stuff that we've got, but it's working. And it was like, okay. But then you had to get out of that mindset. And it is the problem with the studio and what you've got to do. My job is I've got to make sure that you've got to influence people when you're in there. You've got to have, when you put the drums down, you've got to make sure you're creating this cool atmosphere for the drummer to get a vibe off. With me, I go in on my own. It's very fixated that I've got to go and go, right, okay, this has got to be, the foundations are down, the rhythm's down, tick off, done. And then the bass is there, and you've got to be like, right, let's get the groove. You're getting sort of, you're making this sort of fun time. Solo time again is quite a one-on-one sort of thing where you're putting those. And then when you got the vocals, you got to, I won't say ever get a bit of an ego going, but you got to create that atmosphere for the singer to be like, yeah, that's cool. I'm connecting with you. I'm doing this. And we had that this time with our singer, James, who's just, I mean, he's stunning. He's great to work with. And he works very differently to most people, singers especially. And we worked out that we need to do every session's got to be a 4 hour session where we have an hour of just messing around, listening to it, getting a bit of a vibe. We have an hour and a half of putting the main vocal down, and then we have a bit of time where we work out the melodies. And his way that we found was the best way was that we listen to the song and go, right, we need a melody there. And he will then go to the piano, write a melody, which is unbelievable. And he talks to our engineer, who's, a boffin on melodies, and we'll be like, right, I'm going to go a six above here and then a minor seventh. And you're like, what? All right. As long as it sounds good. I don't. But then he'll put the vocal down without the actual main vocal there. And you're like, what? And he goes down, does this. You suddenly turn the main vocal on you. That's unbelievable. That's phenomenal. Do you know what I mean? And then you finish the album off by doing the sort of gang vocals where you're all having a laugh round the mic together, everyone's messing up, but you're getting that sort of like slightly jarred sort of vibe. So there's a lot you've got to do whilst also thinking I've got to go on and do a performance as well. So it is hard to sort of do it, but it's enjoyable. And to be honest, I'm a people's person anyway. So to me, it's like I'm just doing being myself. That's it. But you've also got to be hard on yourself to make sure that you've got to then change your head and your mindset to go, right, it's my turn now to put this down. I've got to focus on myself, sort of thing. And that's the hardest bit for me because I've got to then go, you're good, you're shit, you could be better. And then and then after all that, you've then got to mix the fucker. And that's the hardest bit.
Yeah.
That's the bit where you're listening to it on every single thing. You're listening to it on your car stereo. You listen to it in your house. You're listening to it on your laptop. You're like, okay, what? And it's amazing. You pull out all these little things on different sets of speakers, which is the
That's
cool thing.
true.
And that's the one thing that you notice because all of a sudden, we were sort of going for a different tone on certain things, and you're like, I didn't get that. I've got it. Yeah, that speaker didn't pull out, but that did, and that's the main speaker that most people would listen to as opposed to this.
Hmm.
Because it's amazing. The thing that I find that some of the best points for pulling out the little bits are on my laptop, just actually listening through it and
Oh,
listening
really?
through the little bit. And you've got a crap sound coming from it, but you can then just hear little imperfections mainly that stick out with, little like noises or things like that. Do you know what I mean? And that's the thing. That's the thing about it. Definitely works. So I find you can do you best listen to as many things as you can, really.
Now, we'd be remiss if we didn't at least bring up upcoming things. So I don't know if you have any upcoming tours, singles, maybe a new album you want to tease, although I know that
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Bleeding the
yeah.
Ghost is pretty close.
We've got the big gig of the year this Saturday, so a week today. So the 22nd, that's down south, place called Love Rocks. That's a massive like festival, all music. So we're by far the heaviest band on this year, which a lot of people are looking forward to, which is cool. So I'm looking forward to that. We're just getting dates sorted for going back to Europe again next year for Belgium. But we've got a new album we're working on, which is really cool. We decided that we wanted to get a new album out for next year. So we're nearly at the stage of just finishing the last couple of tracks for that, just finishing off some pre-production. Then we're going to start recording that probably about beginning of September. So that's the main thing. So I've got to go through all this shit again.
And
And like,
I
yeah,
wanted to ask because you kind of Bleeding the Ghost released in late 2023. And I was looking at your Spotify and it seems like you're still focusing on albums. I really only saw one single. Now, of course, you put out Bleeding the Ghost as a video, which was a really cool video on YouTube. So I'm assuming that's considered a single, but
yeah.
you still seem focused on doing things the album way. Do you have any ideas for doing more singles in the future, or are you still just going to keep to this?
Yeah, so we did a couple. We've got another video that we're releasing. We did two videos. We did Bleeding the Ghost and we did Priest. And we've got another video coming out for one of the songs called Knives Out that we're still going to release.
Mhm.
We didn't do as much because the album, to be honest, just did great. So we were like, you know what, let's just focus on the other and it's just letting it go.
And it does
Um,
feel like a complete piece. So a
yeah,
single would almost rob the rest of the album. So I
yeah. So
understand that.
this next one we're going to do four music videos for it. So we're doing those at the time. So therefore, this year we're going to release two videos at the end of the year for it, and then another two next year as the album comes out. But I just prefer albums. I'm like, and the other thing is, you can do singles, you can do it, but can it pay for it to keep the band going? And not really, no, not how we work. We've got a good business model that pays for everything. No one's got to put into the pocket. It's like it works. You know what I mean? We write some money off that we have to do for promotion and things like that, but it works. But if we went down the singles route and just did singles, you'd never make any money in the band the last 5 minutes. Do you know what I mean? And
Yep.
I think the reason a lot of people do it is a lot of people. I think there's a focus on this people just not listening to. I think some of the younger generation has got this mindset of singles and they'll put their own playlist together and everything like that. And I get that, but you've got to be strong to go, hey, I've got an album's worth of material that's bloody good, and I want to put it out. That's the thing, bands, unless something changes in the current market, you won't survive if you don't do that. Definitely. There's nothing to, people aren't going to go and buy a CD single anymore. Do you know what I mean? They're just going to get it for
Hmm. I
that.
do understand that. I remember going and buying, Nirvana singles because you'd
Oh
get
yeah,
a B side
exactly.
that you'd never heard of on the backside.
Exactly. You do no, you do that. I did. You do that for Nirvana. I did that. You bought
But
every
you don't
single
do that
thing.
anymore.
Yeah, no, and you did that for Maiden. I mean,
Yeah, of
Maiden.
course.
You'd buy the normal version, the Jack version, the limited edition, and then you buy all the singles. You
I
know.
would have never heard Fade to Black live if I hadn't went and got the single for I think it was Sad But True that it was on.
Well, no, that was the thing. That's a really good example. I mean, I got all the singles off the Black album.
Yeah.
And when they re-released the Black album, like the what you call that, the
Platinum
remastered
version
version,
or whatever.
yeah, I had all the stuff that was on the singles already.
Yeah.
It was like, oh right, it's remastered, cool, I'll get it anyway because it's But I was like, that's all the stuff I've got. And then you had all the
Hmm.
demo versions as well of them recording. It was
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it was a great thing to have. It was like I don't think anyone else I knew had the original strings version of Nothing Else Matters because they'd not bought the single. I was like, I've got that. I've got the elevator version, that
Yeah.
no one else had, sort of thing. But
Or the
yeah,
na 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 versions.
yeah, the Nana, yeah. But no, that's the thing, and that isn't happening anymore. So the album's like the last lifeline
Yeah.
out. That's it. But you've got to be sensible how you do it. And I understand it if these people are just wanting to do singles, totally get it. But it isn't, it's there isn't a lifespan in it, and it's hard enough doing a lifespan at the moment as it is in a band, with especially with costs going up. I mean, we were looking at it the other day. We've just done, we've just done some new t-shirts that we've got, and the first run sold out, and we're on like the third run of the Bleeding the Ghost ones. And then when this is done, we'll get a new t-shirt. But even the t-shirt prices have now gone up. And you're like, okay, I always like being at a certain price, but now you've got to go up a price for it. And then postage has gone up as well,
Yeah.
you know. And it guts me, like the thing is whenever we sell stuff to, especially to America now, I feel I feel a total and utter bastard. I'm like, dude,
But
it's
shipping
not,
to America can't be cheap.
yeah, and it's not at all. I
Yeah.
feel, do you know what? People, if they want it, they're not bothered. I mean, there's some CDs I bought recently from America that have been released that are on their own label, but distribution isn't in the UK, and you're paying 15 quid for postage on top of the 15 quid for the album. It's like, I don't care, I want that album.
Yeah.
I know it's 30 quid, I don't care, I want it. And I'll still get messages going, I'm really sorry about the postage. It's like, just fucking how it is. But I feel gutted sometimes when I'm doing it, especially if it's ever a hoodie and you're like, Jesus Christ, man. So sorry. I'm so sorry. But it is the best hoodie in the world. You will love it, But it isn't cheap, and it's such a shame. It really, really is. It really, really is. But way of the
So,
world.
on that note, let's speak to some of the benefits of being independent and some of the drawbacks to it.
Well, the the benefit the benefit in my eyes is that you've got total control over everything you do. I don't have to answer anymore to like what you used to with the label where you've got to give percentages of additional sales you do. I don't have to chase people up financially because I literally now am working with one company for distribution and they have to give you a statement.
Hmm.
So the money off it is easy to get. There's
Hmm.
no filtering now where there's a middleman taking money out of. So there's no issues on that. There's no cost for us for doing any kind of artwork because we've got obviously Aiden, our guy, he does like all the stuff. So there's no cost on that. So it's all positive. The only downside I'd say is that there's a lot you've got to take on. And occasionally you sort of think, should I get someone else involved? Should someone else help to do the social media, to do this, to do that? But you're like, if I do that, that's then going to impact financially. But I understand why people do it. And it's about working smarter and going, right, okay, let's schedule posts on Facebook. This is going to go on Twitter then. So just everyone knows this is it. So, and having that full sort of backing of the band to go, right, you need to do that, you need to do this, you need to do that. And if you work as a team, it's not an issue. But it is, one of the guys, one guy's in charge of social media, one guy's in charge of making sure, equipment's in order and there's a checklist for when you've got a gig that everything goes in and everything like that, and you've got to be like that. And one guy's in charge of the merch, making sure that's all, up to date and when we go out, we've got the right amount to take out and everything, and the website's up to date. So there is a lot of work, but you're like, if you didn't do that, you're going to be eating into your profits, and it's not hard. It really isn't. I mean, the one thing that I thought was weird is that there's a lot of UK bands at the moment that are self-releasing, doing stuff, but then they're going to a third party just to do the merch. And I'm like, okay, that's going to cost you a fortune and it's going to eat into your profits. And is it hard, like doing the merch? I mean, I have to admit, I'd say for the first 3 weeks of when Bleeding came out, I mean, I did the first, I said, "Look, I'll do the first few days and get that going." And the first 3 days, I think I was up till like 3 o'clock most nights. And he got to the point of like, I don't even know. I think I might have sent 2 CDs to this guy. Fuck it, happy Christmas, mate.
Yeah, right.
And it got to that where you're doing it, and you're
Give it
like,
to your mate.
yeah, is it hard? It can get a bit tedious, but you know what? If all of a sudden I was doing that, that's going to then take X amount percent off, and you're like, okay, I would get a bit of sanity back, but that percentage, when you add it up over a period of time, that's a lot of money. Just for
Hmm.
you to go, you know what? If I just spend a bit of my time just doing this and actually having the like, or the intelligence, it's not hard. So no, it does get frustrating sometimes, but then you're thinking, at least I know it's been done right and I know it's been done. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's it. Is that do I miss the bit of a back in here? Sometimes, yeah, but you know what? We've already paid for our next two albums. We've got, we paid for the next two albums to be done and the next like five videos to be shot. Do you know what I mean? So that's like that's good in my eyes. I'm happy.
That feels good when you know you're the one that did that and you didn't have to get you didn't
Exactly.
basically it basically seems like it's like a loan situation where now you owe somebody and you may not want to do what they want you to do, but because you took their money, you have to, you being on
Oh
your
yeah,
own. Yeah,
yeah, definitely. And
I can
like, does
definitely
it?
see that.
Yeah, and I think that's it. But I think the problem is that a lot of you work with different there's different mentalities with people at the moment, and I know there's a lot of people that go, well, I get stressed with this and I get stressed with that and this is hard work and oh no, I've got to do this. It's like, if you love it and if you want to do it, the thing about an album and especially releasing it, the easiest part is the recording. The easiest part. The hardest bit is writing the songs and then getting it out there afterwards and making sure you're chasing up the reviewers. You've got a lot to do.
Yeah.
But when you're doing that and creating this buzz, and then also thanking people for taking the time to review it, thanking people for buying it, and it's like, well, that's part of the enjoyment, and that's what comes with it. It's not
Yeah.
just a case of releasing an album, that's it, it's out. It's a case of everything you've got to do with it. But you want to have that love for it. You want people to hear it and go, I love that. I've connected with that. I've done that. So you've got to put the hard work in. So if you don't do that, you're never going to get anywhere. And that's just, it's about being driven more than anything.
So we've got about 5 minutes left. So I want to make sure before we run out of time to give you a chance, if you have any, to shout out your sponsors.
I'd like to thank Dan for everything he does. Thanks, Dan. You're welcome. No, the main people, the people know who they are. There's a lot of support that we get from. There's a lot of UK festivals who are great fans. A lot that, especially the radio side. We get played. We get great radio response off people, and that a lot of those people are doing it for free. And especially the reviewers as well. And I always thank them by sending them a hard copy of the album as a thank you. They've taken their time to do it, so I'm taking my time to say thank you. Here's a gift. You know what I mean? There's a CD for you, there's a t-shirt, whatever. And that's important for me on that. It's about thanking the people that have supported you along the way. And not just a thank you, giving them something as a thank you. Do you know what I mean? You're taking your time to book me for that. There's a t-shirt, there's a CD. You're taking your time to review
Absolutely.
it. And that's it. And that's how I work. I take a bit off, write it off. It's fine. It's written off a profit. Doesn't matter because it's a thank you for them taking their time to do it. And having faith and support. So
Absolutely. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for joining me
no
today.
problem.
I really appreciated the talk, and I think this was awesome. Everybody, if you are interested in listening and finding out more about Promethium, I'll link all of their information down in the description below. So make sure to check that. I'll have their website, their Spotify, their YouTube. Um, Buy Bleeding the Ghost and look forward to the new album coming out next year. Check them out on the road. I'm sure they're awesome live because they have a really good sound. Uh, I wish Promethium all the best going forward, and
Thank you
thanks
so much,
again.
dude. Much appreciated, mate. Thank you so much, dude.